All right. Well, welcome to the Creativity Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Smith, and today my guest is Jon Ripley. Say hello, John.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's almost like I feel like there's a bigger distance between us right now.
Do you?
Just because I can hear my mouth sounds.
Also, feel free to adjust this and
Okay.
if you want to lean back in your seat or pull your seat up.
Okay. I'll get comfy.
Yeah. Get comfy. Before we get into it, I have a quick ad I got to read.
Okay.
All right, let's get into it. Hey, you. Are you really watching porn all by yourself? Try Jerkmate, free and affordable. All right.
Jerkmate.
You ever use Jerkmate?
I never have. I have definitely seen the ads.
Mm-hmm.
The once or twice that I've ever watched porn. But I don't. That's too much. That's too involved. You know what I mean?
I don't even know what it is. I don't know what Jerkmate. I just know that ad, but I don't know.
I think that maybe it's like new age phone sex or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just feel like the appeal in the beginning of it, where it's always like, hey, are you really watching porn by yourself? Well, of course. That's why I'm watching porn.
Wait, I'm less of a loser First, you got to think of yourself as a loser if you're watching porn and jerking off. I guess there's a lot of guilt in this, in our society.
Suppose. I just feel like watching porn, not that you can't do it with other people, but I feel like it's majority of the time it's engaged with, it's like a solo activity.
Mm-hmm. It's best enjoyed by, I think, singularly. I don't know.
Yeah. You've only watched it once or twice, so how would you know?
Yeah, and once was with other people and once was by myself.
So wow, you have a perfect 50-50 experience. I mean, which of those two experiences was the preferable one?
By myself, for sure. The group situation was, 30 years ago with some of my, teenage friends when we were, adolescents, all watching a porn facing.
Right.
My buddy, my friend growing up had the perfect setup in his basement where there was just couch, and then there were more couches. So no one was looking at each other, and we were watching some, I don't know what it was. Some, it's like Dr. Butts or some shit with Ron Jeremy. It's pretty cool.
Was that the first one? Does that the first time that you watched it was in the group setting, and then later you did it by yourself?
Yeah, later, I don't know, maybe 28 years later was the next time that I did. It was so stupid.
Well, it's good to see you. It's been a little while since I still have headshots of yours.
Yeah, I just it's I guess they look like shit.
They don't. It's just one of those things that I put on my to-do list and then I've just forgotten about it.
That's fine.
But I still have them and I'm still going to edit them and give them to you.
Yeah, whenever.
Just 5 years from now.
That's fine. Yeah. I'll have to send them to STW. Hopefully they'll finally sign me.
STW.
Yeah, some fucking local talent person.
Yeah. I remember we did that shit show where you played the STW talent agent. Maybe that's why they won't hire you, because they've seen that.
I've submitted to them a few times, and a couple times I did the thing where I would just take a picture of my eye and my head or up, and be like, hey, just wanted to show you guys a couple new looks. And then
we used to joke about that. I'd take those fucking photos of you guys out back. I'd be like, y'all can use this as a headshot.
Yeah, you inspired me, and I did it. And
you actually sent that to them? Oh my God.
On more than one occasion, I believe, and I never heard a thing from them. They've never responded to anything I've ever sent them. Maybe one generic rejection, we're not taking on new talent right now. And I know a lot of people they represent and they suck, so I don't give a fuck.
Ain't that the truth?
I just don't give a shit anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I was worried about it. Not that I worried about it, but I was like, you know, like, people were like, that's the agent you need in town or whatever. And I was like, cool. So I submitted, and I never heard anything. And I fucked around with, you know, just goofing off with those funny pictures of myself. And then 2 years ago, I was like, I'm going to try to get a fucking agent for real. So then I sent them, like, real headshots and shit. I still never heard anything. Whatever. I doubt they even, you know, they probably get so many submissions. They don't give a shit. You know what I mean? There's a lot of losers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like I warned you, I'm pretty bad at this.
That's fine.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about comedy. That's how we met.
Yes.
Many years ago, 10 years ago, something like that.
At least.
Yeah.
You were in fucking high school when I met you.
Yes. 17.
You were a damn senior in high school. Yep. Making your documentary.
And how long? When did you start doing comedy? Like, what came first for you? Was it improv or stand up?
Improv.
And what got you into that?
I think it started when I was living in Greensboro, North Carolina, before I moved here, and maybe 2000.
Could you pull the mic just a little bit closer?
Sure, 2005, 2006-ish, and I didn't want to get too close to the fucking big bite jizz stain on the bottom of it. Yeah. But anyways, I worked with a bunch of guys that were going to school in UNCG for acting, and befriended them, and we'd goof off a lot. And in doing fondue serving, you spend so much fucking time at tables that you gotta just bullshit. And I would just really bullshit and make people laugh. And anyways, long story short, I moved here with in 2008 with the idea that I would get into film or whatever. And I don't know what the fuck I did. I think I got into the Duke Fire community. I did not get into it. I mean, it's community college, so anybody can. But I started that, and I really was like, I want to perform more. Long story short, I heard an ad for Brooklyn Green's continuing education improv class that she had at Cape Fear, and so I took that class. Started January 2009, and I met Steve Marcinowski in that class. And pretty quick after that, I mean, we took that class. I took another class with Brooklyn, friends with some guys from that class. We did improv together. Then I met Colton because Steve was like, hey, there's some guys that do improv. They're the drama club at Cape Fear Community College. So we went there. I went there for a few times, met some people, met Tim Boise and guys that formed the Nut House Improv Troupe. And Timmy Sherrill had recently opened up Nut Street. So I guess, I don't know how it came about, but he wanted, whatever, maybe an improv night or improv house team kind of deal. So then we started doing the Nut House show, I think, December or November 2009.
Yeah. And I remember by the time I came there in 2012, Wednesday nights, like the Nut House night, was really popular. I mean, the open mic was too, but I just felt like, how long did it take you from 2009 to 2012 for that night to become like that? Did you guys have a hard time? Was it like a quickly?
It was pretty quick. I think that one of the driving factors was that the comedy club was kind of new. It was like the first comedy club in town, or maybe, the first one that I was aware of, because I'd only been living here not even a year, or about a year when we started doing it. And I think people were just maybe kind of starved for something to do, and also it was a free show with dollar beers, because Tim Boise was a brewer at Front Street Brewery, and he get kegs, buy kegs. I don't know what he did, but we would have a keg of beer and we'd sell dollar beers, so that drew a lot of people out.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it wasn't our comedy at first, but then and we. we had a good crowd for a while, and it kind of ebbed and flowed, you know what I mean, where we'd build up an audience and then it'd be less of an audience. But yeah, it wasn't unheard of us to have like friggin' sold out shows, you know what I mean? Like the whole room would be full.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It was pretty cool.
So how long into you doing improv did you decide to try out stand-up?
Not too long after, because I knew they had the open mic on Thursday nights, and like I knew Colton and Steve would go to it. And now, no, yeah, because I did. That's weird, because I might have actually done. I think I did like a class, improv show for Brooklyn Green's class at the Brown Coat. And Steve Marcinowski started, Steve was going to, the Brown Coat because they had an open mic Thursday nights stand up before Dead Crow or Nut Street opened. And that was the first place I did stand up, actually. And I saw Zach Burke would go there, and some of the, the people that still do stand up around here. But I don't know. Improv comes more naturally to me, and, playing characters and that kind of stuff. So stand up, I think it was my ego. I knew Colton and Steve were doing it, and I was like, I'm funnier than these guys. To be honest, but and then I did stand up for several years, but once I had a couple kids, it just got to be too hard to try to
do both.
And then my brother got sick, and I was just like, I don't know. I just was like, I don't fucking love stand up, so fuck it, I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
I went and did a show in 2018 in like the summer in Washington, North Carolina. Like, this guy sought me out to teach an improv class and do stand-up. I was like, really, I'm more of an improviser, but yeah, I do some stand-up, and I'd really not been doing a lot of stand-up for 6 months or so by that point. I went there. I was opening for Matt White and somebody else, and I bombed so hard. And then I just like made fun of these rednecks from Washington, and I didn't do stand-up again for like fucking years after that.
So that was like the last time?
No, because I've done it a handful of times here and there, just like open mic setting, or
just like popping in.
Yeah, or I did Daredevil does that stand-up class, so I did one of their showcases. I did one a few months back where I did stand-up as Ulysses S. Grant.
Yeah.
That was cool. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, another early memory and project kind of around that era, which I was not around for, but I just know of and have watched, but the short film you guys made, Firearm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How did that come to be? That was like Tim Boise's kind of thing, right?
Tim Boise was more like he had lived out in L.A. and had was an actor. He had booked some gigs. He had done some shit in commercials. Anyways, he was like the leader of the Nut House Improv Troupe, and we both were into filmmaking. We're like, we should write a script, make a movie. And Dave DeMiro too was also really interested in like producing a film. So we wrote the first script I ever wrote was Firearm. I co-wrote it with Tim, and then we had got money together and knew some real filmmaking pros that helped us make, that we hired them, and and so we had Heath Franklin, who was like the producer, camera, he directed the movie more than we did. We wrote it, and we acted in it, but he had all the filmmaking experience, and this guy Darwin and this guy John, the sound guy, they all were really, good pros that still work in the industry, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, we wanted to make a movie, so we wrote this script. Seemed good enough, hired these guys, shot it. That was like a year after we started doing the Nut House Improv show. We made that, October 2010, I think.
Did you guys like screen it at a Nut House night?
No, so we made this movie, You know, we spent, I don't know, shot it for like a week or something like that at Castlehane Park mostly, and a couple other spots. But anyways, and then we screened it at Front Street Brewery, up in their beam room in the top floor. And, you know, it was cool. It was a cool screening. Had a pretty good crowd. Turned out pretty good reaction. It was kind of like, you know, the home crowd team or whatever, home team crowd or whatever. So I think they were nice, you know, because it's not a very funny movie. But and then we like did nothing with it. And then I had a kid right after that. So I was like, fuck, I don't know. I don't have, you know, that just dropped off my thoughts of like, what should we do with this movie now that we've made it? I don't think we might have entered it into a couple. I don't think it didn't get into Cucaloris. It got into some Cape Fear film festival thing. And then I finally was like, hey, Steve, you have a DVD copy of that? And I put it online like a few months ago.
Yeah. Speaking of Cucaloris, I always, like I've had stuff in there, but I feel like they never take the good stuff. Like I've given them like really some of my best shit, and then I've given them some, you know, whatever. Just let's see if this gets in. And they take some of the what? Like what? Why would that be the thing that you pick?
I don't. Who knows? You know, all that shit's just subjective. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I've submitted a couple things, I think, to Cucaloris. Nothing I've done's got in. I danced at Cucaloris.
Yeah.
As part of Visual Sound Walls, the Johnny Gray thing, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah. It's always fun to do that show. Shame he's not doing it anymore.
Oh, I know. I saw him recently because I know he's like back in town. I saw him. He was down at the show last Wednesday. Looks the fucking same.
Yeah. Same old Johnny.
Yeah, he doesn't age. He's yeah. Johnny Gray. Man of the earth. Anyways, what?
Oh, no, I was just rambling. We can talk about some of the stuff we've done.
What would you like to talk about?
I was going to say we can talk about some of the stuff that we've done together.
Having booger problems, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Take care of your boogers.
It's tough with a beard and a mustache, and then you get boogers. I always have this fucking drippy right nostril. Anyways, what?
It's a good big beard to keep boogers in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But often, like my wife or my kids or my parents will be like, "You got some shit in your beard." Like, oh, you got like a booger in your beard. And I'm appreciative of it because I don't feel it, I guess. But
right. Cool. That's what family's for.
Yeah, that's true. That is.
Mm-hmm. Helping you find the boogers in your beard before the public sees them.
Exactly. So, me and you, we've collaborated together a few times.
Yeah.
The shit show.
Yeah, I've realized the stats on that. There's 17 episodes. You're only not in 2 of them. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think you're the person I've worked with the most on that one.
Yeah.
I've always loved working with you, and
yeah, dude. Yeah, same. That was fun because I really like doing sketches and acting on camera, and that was one of my I don't know, early best experiences working on camera, you know?
Yeah. Do you have like some favorite ones that you've done, like either the product or the experience or both?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I'm proud that I'm in Zygote, even though I think my part's kind of, you know, wasn't even, like when we made it, it was like a sketch idea or some shit that got worked in as the, part of the show. But I think that's a good film, so I'm like happy that I'm in it, right? You know? And I had so much fun when I did that scene with you after I fucking had shoulder surgery, and I was the fucking friend of yours after you were like, who did you kill?
Addison.
You killed your retarded son.
Yes, that's right. And the scene we shot in the park where you punch him.
Oh my God.
And it's so funny. Later when you show up in the film and you've got that arm brace on, it makes it look like you punched him so hard that you fucked your arm up. Have you ever like put that together?
No, like seriously, like I don't really ever watch any of the shit that we make. You know what I mean? I have fun doing. I remember when we see it. Like I'll see it the first time you you show it to me and whatever, and then but after that, I never. You know what I mean? But no, I never really thought about that. That's fucking great.
Yeah, it's subtle, you know. Because I remember we were shooting that. You like kind of warned me. You were like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm in this fucking arm brace now."
Yeah.
I think you were like, "I can take it off." But I was like, no, leave it on.
Yeah. I know. I remember that. I was gonna take it off because I was gonna sacrifice my freshly surgeried shoulder.
Yeah,
but it worked out better.
Yeah, me and Zach recently watched the extended version of the Sherberts.
Oh my god, that was one of the first sketches I think I did with you.
Yeah, that was the second episode because the only two that you're not in, I think, are the first episode and then the 8th one that I did with like my high school friends. Other than that, yeah. So the second episode is the Sherberts. So that would make sense.
That was so fun.
Oh yeah.
And man, I just was going for like the entitled Long Island racist,
Right. Yeah, that sketch is vile, dude. I mean, it was so funny. There's just no script. It was just kind of this basic direction, like just be a piece of shit older sibling.
And you were very like you told me like I had the idea of the character, whatever. From you tell me what you wanted or kind of. I don't really. It's been a while, but just improvising the stuff, and I just was like, man, this guy. I know these guys, and they're these fucking racist, like Long Island Trump tards. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I dropped the N-bomb a couple times in that. My history with that fucking word, and it's funny. I had an audition last week. I did an audition,
and you dropped it. Then
I had to. It was for the script. Like I don't use that word. I mean, I never used that word as like in my vernacular,
right.
But I had used it in a comedic sense,
right.
And I stopped doing that because I evolved.
I know. One of my favorite stories you tell is that improv show where it's like the worst thing to shout out at Disney World or something.
Yeah, it was the worst thing to shout out in the middle of Harry Potter world. And it was just like, I never had an experience like that. That's a thing that I love about performing live, that people, unless they've experienced, can't relate to.
Because the room went went silent on you when you did it.
Dude, they turned on me, and rightly so. But God, and I fucked up. Okay, so the show was going great. I just felt like I was just fucking killing it, and we're a good crowd, getting a lot of laughs. And we were doing our stupid fucking one-liner shits at the end of the show, and that was the prompt. And I had done a couple already. They got big laughs, and bam, it comes up, and I just was like, dude, I'm just feeling it. And Mike Henninger said, "Nerds." So then I jumped up and said it. But where I fucked up really is I didn't do it in a character. I just yelled out that word plurally in my regular voice. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was like, Colton immediately slapped me. He backhand slapped me in my chest. And I was like, what the fuck? It's like the guys on stage turned on me too, Like Mike I remember Mike and Colton specifically, and then like Dave and Steve just looking at me like, "What have you fucking done?" And I was just like, "Oh, I did." Like apologized.
Oh my God!
It sucked the air out of the room so hard. I don't remember the rest. I don't remember. We wound it up pretty quick after that.
Yeah. I wish I knew the feeling of sucking the air out of the room.
Yeah, right. You're someone I can relate to. So, like, what? Like, I admire sometimes your bombs because I can relate to like doing stand up and fucking bombing and then being like, you know what? I hate when people bomb and they fucking don't own it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't have the self-awareness to realize that they suck right now or whatever, and it's not working. And they keep trying to do their thing and plow through, I guess. And when somebody really is like, fuck it, I'm gonna just take a hold of this and see what I can do. Because then sometimes you get laughs from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's yeah. I always say, like, describe the difference between a good bomb and a bad bomb. Is a bad bomb is when you go out there and you try a thing and it doesn't, like, sucks the energy out of the room, and then you start apologizing, like, oh shit, I'm sorry, and you try to pull back.
Yes.
And then they still don't like you after you try to give them something a little more tame. But like when you do it and you suck the energy out of them, like, all right, they're not here for this, and then you're like. Like, something I've been doing lately is I'll try out a joke and, like, this is you know, pretty risky, a little more than moderately risky, and I'm like, I'm gonna try it, and I do it. And then, you know, if they do like it, then I'll keep going and have fun with it or whatever. But if they don't like it, I've been doing this where I'm like, I give them a joke and then they just kind of like give me nothing, and then I go, all right, well, since you didn't like that one, I'm gonna give you a way worse one. Like, just tell them what I'm gonna do, or like kind of even warn them. I'm like, if you guys don't come with me on this ride, it's only gonna get worse. I was like, so it's your choice.
Choose your own adventure.
Right.
I've seen. It's been a little while since I've seen your stand-up live, and I know a while back. I can remember. I don't know where some show where you're like. You're fucking really killing it. Like, you're not playing a character. You're not even doing like any sort of real anti-comedy. You're just talking about your life or whatever. And you're like, I can't remember any of your fucking material except for your fucking.
I know, because I want to like do it like once.
Except for your school shooting stuff, but
right.
But and then you would have them. The audience would love you, and you're like just fucking. Like the epitome of like an open mic set or something, you know what I mean? And then you're like, no, I'm gonna turn on you guys here. And you like willingly start talking about something so fucked up where everybody's like, what's happening? We loved this guy. Oh, I fucking love it. Like, it's, you know, people cringe, like, what is he doing? And like,
well, I feel like a lot of times what it is me thinking that I can do that first part. Like, it's not me going like, I'm going to make them love me and then I'm going to make them hate me. It's going like, I'm going to make them love me enough so that I can get away with this other thing. And sometimes I can.
Yeah.
But
I've
a lot of times it's like, nope, didn't make them love me enough. Not enough for that.
This time that stands out, and I think it was at, you know, Dead Crow, the old club, and you were having a good set, but it wasn't like your typical set as far as I can mean. Like, you seemed more of a, you know, mainstream sort of comic, and it was great. And like everybody was like, yeah, Cameron's so talented. Yeah, he's putting it all together, you know. And then he just went into your, I don't know what you started talking about. Probably Sandy Hook or some shit. Audience, it's just like,
I do love that topic.
Oh, it is so fucked up, but just to like, I can appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like the jokes on you kind of deal sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
Yeah.
But it's so good. Like, I can relate to, like, when I'm doing stand-up or I'm bombing, or sometimes, and I don't do a lot of stand-up, and improv is different. We're like, I have a routine, getting ready to go do the improv show, you know what I mean? And like, I just always love it, and I'm always really excited, and I just love getting into that mind space where I don't have to think, try, you know what I mean? I just can try to be creative and be funny and be characters.
Yeah.
And stand-up, I was always way more in my head, you know what I mean? And my mood could affect me, you know what I mean? Because you're trying to tell your jokes things that you've already thought of or written down or told before, likely several times. And if that day, you know, for me, if I was just not feeling it, and there's always more anxiety involved in stand-up. There's not anxiety in improv for me, but I still get some anxiety with stand-up, or I did then. And anyways, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Just that I can remember, doing a set, and then if it's not going good, and the audience isn't feeling it, and you're kind of bombing, and part of I don't know, it's an ego thing, or it's just like, man, fuck you guys. I don't give a fuck about entertaining you. Which I guess makes it fun for myself, but not as fun. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I did stand up last week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
At the mic, or where'd you do it?
At Steve's birthday, at the Brad's cheesesteak mic.
Oh, okay.
And I had a great time. I fucking loved it. And I was like almost going to go Thursday night too. But then I was tired, and I was like, God damn it. I don't want to go fucking sit around and wait down there. Right. So I don't love it that much. But it was fun because I didn't, you know what I mean? It's been enough time, and I even, you know what I mean? Maybe it's just me maturing, or I didn't care. And so I just, I want to make people laugh, of course, but I was just like, I'm just going to talk about, what's interesting. And I was like, I'll just talk about some shit from when I was a kid growing up overseas. And it was good. It was like one of the most fun I've done stand-up before, because I just felt like I was just being myself, just fucking telling some stories, and you know what I mean? Like, and so then it gave me a little bit of that adrenaline or dopamine where I was like, but I am a great stand-up comic. I know I'm not, though. You know what I mean? I know, but I could just be funny for a few minutes. But I don't. That's something I just put all the work into, do stand-up. I don't have it in me.
Yeah. Stand-up is it's so complicated, I feel like. To me, of the things I do, I think it's the hardest, not like the art of it itself, but the social hurdles that surround it. Like, I feel like on one hand, it's like two extremes at the same time. On one hand, I feel like comedians and this particular pocket of like artist type people are the people I relate with the most, and I feel like is most closest to like just my tribe of people.
Yeah.
While at the same time feeling kind of not really part of it. Like I feel like I feel like comedians are black sheep of society.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel a little
likely
bit
the black sheep of their own families.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes, like in black sheep groups, I feel like a black sheep of them. And maybe another way of describing that, it almost feels a little bit like something I often say, like on the political spectrum, is I feel like I'm too conservative for liberals, and I'm too liberal for conservatives.
Okay.
And another thing I kind of described, like I was talking to my brother about like romantic issues I have and shit, and I'm like, we were talking about my type, and the girls I typically find myself attracted to. It's almost like if you're thinking about me psychologically, the way I'm fucked up and wild and weird, the type of person, the type of woman I should probably be with is that woman that's heavily tattooed and pierced and fucking wild and loose and crazy. Like,
some might think that, but that's not what I would think. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like those are the women that like me. Those are the those are the ones that are like, yeah, I fuck with this dude, I want to hang out with him, but I'm not into it. I'm like, no, I want someone who looks and behaves much more vanilla, because I think that side of me, that's who I am at home. I'm very vanilla.
But
I think that those
like
people
myself somewhat.
Yeah, but I think those people see the wild, creative side of me. Like, I can't live with that. And it's hard to have someone who's like that, or to find someone who's like that is also like accepting and open to the other shit.
I know I found one woman who was into me like that, and then we got married, and it's just been the best, because I couldn't, be as creative as I want to be if it wasn't for her. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, I totally do. I feel like, yeah, you really lucked out. And
yeah, I did.
How did you and your wife meet?
At the Melting Pot here in Wilmington. And
while you were working there?
While I was working there. Well, I had worked at the one in Greensboro for years, and then I moved here, and I was working at, I don't know. I thought I was going to do this work for this landscaping gig, but they fucking went out of business right when I moved here. So I worked at like McDonald's and fucking Elizabeth's Pizza. I worked my way up through shitty restaurants to back to the Melting Pot, and my wife was my trainer, and we just hit it off. And like I was 29, maybe I just turned 30. She was like, hot 21-year-old, but so smart, you know what I mean? And kind and, much more vanilla. I don't know if that's, but like just a really, I don't know. She's way more even keeled than I am. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. I haven't really met your wife that much. I've just, I've been over to your house before. I remember a long time back when we were like Real Cafe. I remember coming to one of those shows.
Yeah,
but I feel like I've never had a conversation with her. But
yeah,
so I don't know even, and we never even talk about it really. It's
no, I really, with you, I just talk about typically. I don't know what we always talk about. I don't know. I think we have a lot of interesting conversations, but like,
yeah, it's usually about ideas about what we could be doing. What we want to do, something we want to work on,
a little philosophizing,
and then it'll be like, me talking about young man psychological problems, and you're giving me maybe some advice or insight, or talking about your experience. A lot of me pushing my narcissism onto you.
Yeah, and then I feel like fuck. I don't want to come across like this, like. Well, Cameron,
Oh no, I've never felt like that. I feel like I'm kind of pawning it off on you in those times where, it's like polite conversation. We engage like, hey, how you been? What's new?
Yeah,
and then it comes up, and I just start. You're someone I feel comfortable telling things to, but as it's coming out, sometimes I'm like, do I have to tell him this? I was like, does he?
I can.
We could be talking
about
something better,
It doesn't bother me at all, and I never really. I just think like I can like sometimes think about my own experiences and what I
pull the mic down
my own mindset when I was as a similar age as you or whatever. But like you're someone. I feel like when we have conversations, I can talk pretty easily with you. We like each other's company and like to talk to each other, but we don't really hang out that much. So I think when we would see each other, we'd really just try to like get into a serious conversation pretty quick, just because we are friends and feel comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there aren't, so many people that I don't have a lot of the conversations I have with you. I don't have with a lot of other people, to be honest. Which is cool. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah. It's good to have friendship where you have unique conversations with someone that you feel like you don't typically engage in with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always really appreciated, I appreciated a lot of things about our friendship, but particularly, especially those years making Shit Show, just like how much you were interested in being part of it, and like how much you like committed to what I would give you.
Thanks.
And just like you were great with when it was scripted, taking my script and acting it out, making it funny, and putting your own little additions to it or staying to the script. And then of course all the times that there's no script, filling it in a way that I'm fucking loving. And just bouncing back ideas.
I would just try to make you guys laugh too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you can make the other people that you're working with laugh, especially if they're like behind the camera, because I know it fucks it up, but it still feels good. So like,
yeah. And that's another thing I've appreciated, those moments where you were willing to fill in behind the camera, because I know like us as art type, like we mostly want to be in front of it, and
of course,
doing that kind of thing. But I feel like I've never gotten to properly thank you for the effort that you've put in.
You're welcome. And I loved every minute of it, man. It was cool because I just, at the time, I had my nature as a creative person and a performer and an artist, whatever, I think I just kind of really didn't accept that part of me, and until I was like, about 30 years old, when I really started doing comedy and acting and whatever. So I feel like it helped me, because I feel like I was almost making up for lost time, for lack. I mean, if that's not the right way to frame it, but so I was just so happy to be able to perform and all the different weird shit. And you're a great director, dude. I mean, just from my limited experience working with people, I think you, like, from what you read about director, whatever, like, I read a lot about filmmaking and whatnot, and I have an interest in filmmaking. I make, like, I'm a filmmaker myself, but I was definitely inspired by you. And as far as you as a director, you always know what you want. And that's kind of cliche, but it's so fucking true. It's like, you are like, have an idea and you know what you're going for there, but then you're also open to improvising. And when it comes down to it, I think you have like a final say or an idea. And I think that's for me, I thought it was really helpful. And then, especially in like this space where it's like not amateur, but it's not professional, because no one's getting paid, but we're all, you know, talented and passionate people or whatever. But we're kind of all growing together. You know what I mean? Yeah. And in that space, I've worked with some other filmmakers, and most people, they just like, they don't really think about it. You know what I mean? And I think, I was inspired because you're just making all this shit. And I was like, most people, like before that, I had done a few student films and worked on some things with people, and like, and never saw shit, and never would get finished. That's the classic thing, right? How many, you do all these things and people just never. Yeah, I mean, you would be like, "Fuck." A week later, there's some fun. You know what I mean?
But not to say, there have been times where I haven't finished a thing, and I mean, those things, I try to do that as little as possible, because it's personally devastating to like, even with something like that Christ Fit sketch. I'm bummed I never fucking finished that. That would have been so fun. And then of course, like all the projects we've like talked about that we never did, like even that is a little bit like stomach churning to me.
I wonder about all the funny ideas that we had that we forgot about.
Right. And then like, that last film, Black Hole, that like I actually made significant progress and put like a significant amount of money into, and didn't get to finish it. That one's really devastating to me, and I haven't really made an effort to make a legit film since then. And I feel like I have this pressure building up to do that, but like also at the same time, the longer I wait, the more I'm like, it better be real fucking good. But the one thing I wanted to say about what you were describing about knowing what I want, but then you kind of were like, there's these moments where you know exactly what you want, but then there's room to improvise and like add to it. And it depends on the project too. Some it's like much more open, where it's like we got to figure everything out, and I kind of know what I want. Or it's like, no, I know exactly everything, every inch of the way, what I want. But like, I think the middle hybrid thing kind of is that, where it's I know a lot of what I want, but then there's these blank areas where my brain has not decided anything specific. I just know like the spine of the thing. And that's why it's really important. You said that word professional, and I've had like, that was a major theme in my feuds with that actress shooting Black Hole, was she would question the professionalism of me. And I was like, I wouldn't like personally identify as professional. In fact, if you really like start to dig into what my philosophy is with making this kind of art, it's very anti-professional. It's like the things that I could do to make this environment feel more corporate and more professional and respectful to one another. I don't do that, because when you start to do that, it starts to feel again, more like a corporate work environment, starts to feel like work, and that you're on a professional, like, ooh, better be on my best behavior and behave a certain way kind of environment, where it's like, no, I want this to feel like it's friends hanging out in the room making fucking abstract paintings together.
I like that too.
And I think that's why I typically try to avoid casting processes or bringing in anyone, whether it's behind the camera or in front of it, who I'm not already friends with. Because the times I've gone out of that, it almost always creates some sort of awkward not to say there have been some times I've just gone on a whim, like the actress I worked with for Zygote, Emily Gomez.
Yeah,
she that was my first time meeting her. She rolled with it and did really well. And I even think kind of the awkwardness of not knowing her before.
Was she the lead?
She's the lead. Yeah, she was the lead. And the little bit of like natural awkwardness of not knowing this person before, I think contributed to the energy of that film.
Yes,
because it was a very uncomfortable film.
Yeah. I like it a lot. I think it's your best thing that you've made. But you'll like all your shit. I like Doggo too. And that thing's such a monster.
It's so weird. I mean, the three films, Chris, Spike, Zygote, and that back to back, were definitely they're all very different.
Yeah.
Chris Spike, I love so much. Were you at that screening when we first screened it at Dead Crow? I can't remember if you were able to make it or not.
I don't think I was.
It always stands out, and I've talked about this moment before on the podcast, but the scene that we did in the park, when
I assaulted
Addison. Yeah. Watching that, because again, I went into I made the script thinking this is going to be crazy. It's going to be hard to cast some roles in here because of how offensive the script is. One.
Yeah.
And then once it was finished, and I was really thinking, oh God, screening this in front of people, like, man, this is going to be a thing that we're going to have a lot of walkouts. And to my surprise, like, and the way that movie unfolds, it's like the first scene, it kind of reveals, ooh, a little bit of taboo stuff here, and then the next scene, it's like, okay, this was kind of getting kind of edgy. This is like pretty edgy comedy. And then by the time it gets to our scene, and then just the verbal abuse that you and I are exchanging about my retarded son.
Yeah, it's so
bad.
It's
so over the top. And like, I've never seen anything this disrespectful about this subject before. And at that point, like, when I described that arc, where like people are kind of laughing first, like, and they're like, oh, like, that's edgy, and then by that scene, it's like they're starting to laugh, and then it's like it dies down. They got dead silent. But here's the fucking crazy thing I remember.
What's that?
By the time it got to the part where you're like, can I take a swing at him? And then you punch him, and you say that like, you're lucky I wasn't wearing brass knuckles, you faggot. People busted out laughing because it was just so over the top.
It releases that tension, I guess.
Right. It's that comedy thing where, like, you can either do something offensive and then they don't like it, so you pull back, or you can just fucking dig down to China and the other side of the fucking world. But and then the last scene that we're in, the very last scene in the movie,
when I'm like telling you it feels pretty good that you killed your kid,
and they yes, like, because the back third of that movie,
pretty good, huh?
It's pretty intense, and like there's not as many jokes. It kind of just gets dark and uncomfortable, but interesting. Like the story's unfolding.
Yeah, and
then there's that last final joke where he has fucking blown his son's head off. You saved me, who should not be saved.
I love it so much.
My character does not deserve saving.
So fucked up, but it's just
right. But the second worst character of the movie saves me, and then you're like, heard you killed your son. Welcome to the club. And then you're like, how's it feel? And I look over at Addison's dead body. You hear a little fly buzzing around it, and then I turn back to you like, feels really good. Room busts out laughing at that. And I'm like, no way that just fucking landed.
I know, we're like,
yeah.
Like, it was like a moment we had where it's like we're bonding in the fact of how good it feels to murder your son. Was my son like a special needs person character? I can't remember.
So
I never existed.
You just had this wallet photo of like a really young boy. What do you think about him being special needs, but you were bragging? Like, you're like,
it's so terrible.
Do you know who this is? It's my son. He passed away a couple weeks ago.
I just like, I love it. And I think like, I mean, it's so obviously like crazy, a character, like people being like, I wouldn't do that. Like
Right.
a couple weeks ago, like a weekend before this past one, I was working on a student film actually for some Cape Fear Community College film students, and super professional, you know, college kids, but very, you know, professional. And there's the actors were all, you know, fairly decent, I guess. You know what I mean? And where the fuck was I going with this? God damn it! Student film. Oh, but content. One of the actresses was a student, you know, and in one of her productions, she was saying that after they had shot a day back at school, kids had complained to like the professors and even gone above them to like the, you know, department head or something about some sort of content of this student film, which it wasn't like, from what she said, it didn't seem like it was anything really like, and all that. I just feel like there's a weird.
Do you remember anything about the subject matter? Like what they said it was? It was.
It had something to do with a girl who had been sexually assaulted.
Okay.
But that's not, I don't think that none of that's shown. It's just like, that's part of the character. I feel like
Right.
or something like that. And I don't know if it was the character that did hurt her, but like apparently like how the story plays out, she was saying that the protagonist, the one who was assaulted or whatever, she or he doesn't say win or whatever. They kind of like go on, and the person who I think did assault them like doesn't get their comeuppance, right?
Right.
And that was too much for like some of these people involved. These kids, they're young,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I think like
That's a shame for sure.
Of course.
Well, it's like, because of course, like, you know, we have that almost like deeply biological moral reaction to something like that. Like, okay, a sexual assault victim, and then the sexual assaulter, like, yes, we all want that assaulter to have the comeuppance, but to tell a story that doesn't give you what you want, that's provocative art. And
exactly.
And like, that's.
So she was telling me how she was going to rewrite it and shit. And I was like, no, fuck that, fuck that,
yeah.
fuck that shit.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't, you're not, who am I? I won't call somebody, say, if somebody says is an artist, they're doing their art, you know, I'm not going to judge them. But I'll judge them, but I won't, you know, make any claims about that somebody being an artist or not, or whatever. It's like being an alcoholic. And, but to put those weird limitations and like,
To
like, man, too bad you weren't born in the Soviet Union or something.
Right. Like, I think it's important to understand the rules, quote unquote, of creativity. Like, that's what I feel like I learned in the creative writing classes, what people in their different opinions think the rules are.
Yeah.
You know, what are like the generally agreed upon rules? But then just knowing that, to know how you can subvert them. Not like, no, I want to learn them so I can follow them. It's, I want to learn them so I can mimic following them to get, you know, like get some trust and attention at first, and then it'll pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah, of course.
And you know, I mean, it's kind of like the main archetypal story is there's a hero, there's an antagonist, and then the hero goes to struggle and then wins at the end. And it's interesting to see those, you know, most movies have that arc. But it's interesting, and it should be allowed for movies to subvert that arc, where it's like hero, the protagonist and antagonist, actually it's not that clear. They're very complex characters where you could view either one of them as pro or anti, you know, antagonist there. And or it's like there's a clear hero, clear antagonist, but the hero loses and dies and the antagonist wins. It's like, you know, it's a shame that you know, people
the hero
get put in
dying,
these corners where
once achieving their goal. That's like the classic. Who is the fucking Greek, you know, philosopher, writer said that? Was it Sophocles? I forget.
Lao Tzu?
Yeah. Yeah. He was a warrior poet. No, if it said that, you know, the most satisfying outcome for an audience was that, where the hero sacrifices himself. I mean, it's a fucking story. It's like, you know, it's in everything. It's a, you know, Christ story is that, but it's like a child sacrifice / sacrificing yourself for other story. But,
right.
that was like the ultimate, the best payout for a person experiencing like a narrative was that.
Mm.
And I thought it was a shame with hearing this story because one, because this is a smart, creative woman who was doing this, who felt like she needed to do it and was like gonna compromise herself. It felt like to, appease some people. And I didn't know if it was like school issue stuff or whatever, but that the other people involved had it didn't have much exposure, I guess, to stories like this. Like, I mean, that's life. It's so crazy to me that they, how many films or novels or plays or, play out, where the hero loses, so much good art. The best stuff probably comes from people losing,
Yeah.
And so,
like we said very early on, like all this shit is subjective, but I think it's a shame to limit what can and can't be told. And like in this situation where it is, it's a student film, so then it's some sort of like kind of corporate-esque top-down situation. We've had some complaints, and now you're cornering the artist into like, all right, well, I have to change my script if I want to make it under these circumstances. And that was one of the reasons, like, even when I was in film school, I fucking never did anything through the school.
Yeah.
And like they kind of give you two paths to finish that major. Is the other path, one path is the one most film students want, and that's the more hands-on, you're taking the production classes and making student films.
Yep.
And then the other path is the one where you're watching a lot of films and you're writing essays on them. And I hate that second one.
But that's the path you went, right?
That's the path I went, because I was like, I would much rather spend my time and resources making my own shit where there is no top-down sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
Because there's no way I'm going to make the shit
no
I
one
want.
Stopping you.
Yeah, right. There's no, and also like the process of those classes. There's like multiple people get to submit a script in a class, and then it's up to the professor to pick which script gets made. I'm like, I know fucking for a fact my script's never going to get picked. Yeah. I know for a fact if I'm writing the shit I want to write, they're going to be like, hell no, are you mad? Imagine me submitting Chris Spike's story.
Okay, and then during the abortion, the doctor sticks a handgun.
Yeah, Zygote would never get made. Doggo Natal definitely wouldn't get made. I wouldn't be able to explain that to someone.
Exactly. All the male nudity.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that one scene could get made.
So it was, you brought that up and you talked about making stuff and thinking, and like, I've been thinking about that a lot because on one side, I'm trying to pursue, acting in a professional sense where auditioning for, different roles and whatever. I want, television, film stuff, but, I do commercial auditions too, which I don't book any of them really, but,
right.
But to be able to be creative and do something of your own, your art or whatever within that structure, you know what I mean? Because it's weird. Like, say if you're acting in production, on film production or whatever, that you it's so fucking boring when you're an actor it's like a professional thing usually, and you're just waiting around for that time, and everybody, it's so, very serious kind of in my little experience. And then you have your moment, bam, you got to go, and it's time to be doing your fucking thing at a fucking elite level. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I want to be able to do that. But that's not you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But ideally, I like working like you, and I like things to be free, and I like to work with my friends, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it would be awesome to be able to, make money or have money somehow involved in a more less serious production. But I know for me, I think that's part of what I'm trying to do as far as get work in that professional realm.
Yeah.
But continue to work personally in the way I like to do it. Because sometimes I'm like, yeah, I need to start get a better camera and learn how to, and then I like all that technical shit and lenses and stuff. I don't give a fuck. I don't care enough.
Right. You know, I think it's important to recognize which parts you don't give a fuck about and like know you want to outsource, you know, and figuring out what exactly is it that you love doing. I mean, well, like with Chris Spike, I loved working with Jeff.
Yeah.
Because he was really great at adapting to like kind of the run and gun style I like to do. Because what we were describing, like when you show up on the set and there's all this time and it's very serious and you have to perform at an elite level for just this moment.
Yeah.
But like when the way that we typically do things, it's like, no, we're just always fully involved making the thing. It's almost like the production. And I feel like I've always been a very actor-centric sort of director where it's like, no, this is about the experience us as actors should have together so that everything feels organic and we're actively creating it together. And it's not all of the creation was done in pre-production and now we're just kind of robotically executing this well thought out plan. Because I feel like Chris Spike, Zygote, and Dog in a Tower are the three ways that they're very different. I think about them a lot because when Chris Spike, being the first of them, was made, it was like, wow, this is the most polished looking thing I've made today. This is the most professional looking film. And there was a script, but I mostly worked with, you know, all people I knew already and friends of mine. We had fun making it. There were some challenging moments of like getting the script right or getting the shot right or something like that. But otherwise, it was mostly preserving that run and gun and keeping the fun there. And we were having fun and laughing a lot. And then Zygote, it went a little further into like, let's slow it down. Let's polish it up. Let's make these shots like really crisp and and that was what Cam Hussein like his goal was like, I want to make a really nice shot film for you. And I was like, all right, I'm willing to work. And that was my first time ever getting like hands-free direct, because if I'm ever behind the camera, it's been because I'm holding the camera. Exactly. And so like I'm in that film a little bit, but that was the first time like I know there is a DP here and I'm completely,
you're just the director working with the actors and kind of doing your thing. Right.
And I've never, since then, I haven't really had that experience before. So that was really cool to have that. But to me, even with that, I feel like, and like it's your favorite film apparently that I've made. And, And I think it's a very well put together and quality film. There's certain qualms I have personally with my writing on it that I feel like I could have done, but I think I could have made the film more interesting in a number of ways.
Sure.
It feels like it's it's mostly just talking throughout the whole thing. But to me, I had, out of those three movies, I had the least fun making that one.
Okay.
And I felt like, oh, if I keep going in this direction of concerning myself too much with like making a polished, clean looking product where we're taking our time like this on certain things, that kills the fun that's always been there. So then I went complete 180 and like, I'm going to make something like Dog on a Tower where it's like, there's zero script. I'm making it up. And in fact, I'm going to get fucking blasted out of my mind when I'm making this shit up. And I'm not going to question any stupid, weird idea I have. I'm just going to be like, yep, that's it. That's what we're doing. And I'll figure out what it means later.
Yes.
And I'm going to see what happens. And, it's this thing that I feel like on one hand, I think it's the best thing I've ever made and also the worst thing I've ever made at the same time. It's the best thing is it seems the most deeply complicated and meaningful to me. It's like this like infinitely interpretable visual poem that I made, and I think about the meaning of all these different things and choices that were made. But then on the other hand, I totally am aware of like, if I show this to someone, they're gonna be like, this is nonsense. This is hard to sit through. Why'd you make it 5.5 hours? Like I can't, what am I even following? You could have edited so much out of this. But I think the choice to like know all that and still keep it as it is, that I think is like part of why I feel like it's so great to me personally. But I know that greatness to me is a very personal experience.
Well, good. that's part of it. Like, I think when we do stuff at Baboon Lasan, or I make any sketches and things like that, I like to keep pretty loose, and you know what I mean? Kind of like maybe have an idea and stuff, but the atmosphere is so important for me. Like, if people are enjoying themselves, typically it'll come across. And I also have a thing where I also like a sort of unpolished quality to things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I like things to be a little fucked up. And I like a lot of improvising, obviously. And I think that that's part of the art for me. You know what I mean? It's like building this thing. Like I've tried to, I've been making sketches and short films now for 10 years probably or more. And I was really inspired by you, because working with you and making these things and thinking and watching you kind of edit, and you come over to see you or whatever and see how things are progressing, and you show me. And I started fucking around with my iPhone and fucking iMovie, and I really haven't progressed too far from that, except like I maybe use microphones now and whatever, and I'm better at just flow and making something that I think is the way I want it to come out, I guess, and just doing it. And so I feel like I've started to think about the process and how it's important to me. And like, I just don't care about trying to be a professional filmmaker. I'm going to keep doing what I do. And in a way, I want to try to work in a professional film world as an actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, then maybe one day I can get, make some shit and pay some people to make this stuff that we do in the way that we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense to me, because I mean, if it's like you want to preserve, when you're making the things like you do with the Baboon Lasan sketches, it's like you want to preserve that freedom to run it that way, right? Yes. So it's like, no, I don't really want to, turn this profitable just for the sake of profit, and then the whole thing changes to this thing that it's not.
I'm trying to make something for what do I think an audience wants?
Right. You don't want that to enter the picture, because I think that's what.
No, it's not worth it to me.
Right. Well, I think it kills it. I think that thinking is what kills art. But on the other hand, it's like you can compartmentalize acting in a professional environment. It's like, no, I just like doing that. I don't really. Of course, there's roles and experiences that are more fun. Like, it's more fun to work with camera and probably many contexts than it is to work on this show that's on Lifetime. And it's like, I get paid for that, and it's a cool experience. But in terms of like, do I like the finished product, or did I really have fun on that set? Did I laugh a lot? Yeah. Like, it's a different thing. But I'm willing to do that, because I do. Even that version of it, I like that. Yeah. And maybe that path of doing something big on that side of things will be the thing that makes people pay attention to this other thing I'm doing my own way. Yeah. And it's exactly what I feel the same way. I feel like there's certain things that like I don't know. I don't really know what it is I'm doing that will be the thing that will be me playing ball professionally, that will get me to that place. But sometimes I feel like my path is to lean into stand-up, and to just, move to like an actual stand-up city and just do everything I can to fucking play the social field and just do my best to be more consistent and do well and that kind of thing, and get booked and make money that way. And then eventually get into a position where like, okay, I'm known as a comedian, and then people look into my other stuff. And then, only then, do like my films and music or anything else get appreciated on a larger scale. And the reason why I think it's stand-up is because I think that's the best bet for, if people like my stand-up, they're almost certainly going to like the other things.
Okay, yeah.
Where I think any of the, like, if you like my films, it's quite, like, and if that's how I blow up, it's very likely that you're not really a fan of my music or stand-up. And same with the music. Like, I can see people loving Camboy Smith, but it's like, have you seen his stand-up? Fuck that shit. Or like his films, nah, not into that. That's weird. Where it's like, no, if you know me as my stand-up version, I think that you'll dig the music and that you'll dig the films.
Yeah. I think about this, and for me, really, it's just like why I try to pursue acting professionally is that it's the only thing in that professional world of filmmaking that I like to do. You know what I mean? Really, like I like to do the other stuff, but I like directing. You know what I mean? I like working with actors and stories and thinking about all that kind of shit. I don't know where I was going with this, but I saw this interview with Orson Welles recently, and he was talking about working with friends versus working with, somebody asked him in the interview, have you ever cast a role in one of your films with a friend rather than an actor you knew that you didn't know, but somebody auditioned for the part or you knew would be better for that part just purely as an actor and for the sake of that story, but have you gone with a friend instead? And he said, oh yeah, all the time. Because he's like, for me, it's more important to like work with my friends and enjoy myself in the process as opposed to. And he's like, there are those artists who will put the art above everything. You know what I mean? Like Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know if this is true, but I mean, he did cast his sister and his fucking daughter. But he had said how like I'd seen something. I'm pretty sure it's him about casting even like the smallest parts in your films or whatever with the wrong actor will fuck the whole thing up. You know what I mean? And look at The Godfather, how it's so like the casting, all like they just so I see that, but at the same time there's Orson Welles who's on that stratosphere of those genius filmmakers. You know what I mean? He's special in his own, it's unique.
Well, sorry, I'm agreeing with the Orson Welles take. Because I feel like I really learned the fucking lesson of hiring. So like, no, I want to get a great actress. Feels very capable. I'm not friends with her. I don't know her. But she seems great.
I think and that depends on like for what you're doing and at the style you want to do it. Having somebody like that, it's what I mean. It's more potential for them to be like, whoa, this is not what I was thinking.
Oh my god, dude! I remember a moment where, and again, this was like the first time I ever worked with an actress who like read the script a lot in advance and memorized it like an actress would. And
that's important, I hear.
And all before the shoot is script's great, have no notes, happy with it, blah blah blah, and I'm excited. And then
and you're paying her,
right. And then we're shooting this bar scene and she's like going over her lines beforehand, and I'm like kind of doing a quick, we're like, we're going to talk about the emotional beats here and like kind of how we're going to play some of these lines together. And we get to this, I wrote this joke in the script. It's about like, it's kind of like this, our first bar date, like we were meeting up and actually kind of exchanging, words with each other. And she works at an animal shelter and she makes this kind of dark joke. I'm like, oh, or I like say like, oh, and you save all the little animals there. And she goes, no, actually, we kill most of them. And then I was just like, oh, okay, well that sucks. And she goes, she's like, yeah, I really don't like having to put them down. I was like, except for the small dogs, fuck those. And then so there's this whole bit where like we're talking about like, yeah, fuck small dogs.
Yeah.
And she like is going over that, and we get to that part like here's how we play it, like kind of comedically. We have to like lean into this sort of sarcasm a little bit, and but it's also kind of this genuine moment where like kind of like, yeah, fuck small dogs. And she was like, I fucking hate this line. I fucking hate this part. And I was just like, okay. She's like, I have to say this sarcastically. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Perfectly fine. But it was just like, can you not put your morals to the side?
Are you not a fucking actor? That's what I feel like. I mean, fuck, I ain't shit, but I'm just saying that, as a fucking actor, I think you say, all right, you read the script, you're gonna do this role, and if you don't, if I'm not, you can turn anything you want down, but at the same time, you read it and you're playing a character, obviously, it's so I.
On that same note, there was this moment too. This happened before.
Yeah,
we were shooting outside of old books, and this was like the actual first moment me and this character meet. And I'm playing like a fucking depressed, super antisocial. I mean, like kind of how I am, but just to a degree, depressed, antisocial version of me.
Yeah.
And I'm out there, smoking an unlit cigarette. And
Yeah.
this is a little ridiculous, but she comes out. She just watched me read poetry inside, and I'm by myself smoking this unlit cigarette. She's like, hey, I liked your poem. Like, talking, and then I'm kind of ignoring her a little bit. I'm just like, but I'm engaging. I'm not like completely not answering. I'm just like, yeah, thanks. Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Kind of like not looking at her. And then we're doing this. She's going through it. She's like, why would she put up with this? Why is she not walking away after that? Or I kind of added in a line like, make me look a little worse and a little more rude in the situation. She's like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, first of all, this does make sense. There are real scenarios where people behave like this.
Yeah.
I was like, because I've experienced it myself. I've been on the other end and I've been on this end. This is a real human moment. But even if it wasn't, why would the fact that this doesn't happen in real life prevent us from doing it in this movie? Wouldn't that be a motivation to create something you just don't see?
I think so. And I'm trying to see like her perspective maybe, but like for me, I agree. And I would try to figure like how, I don't even know, like I've read a lot of books about acting, taking a bunch of acting classes and shit. And really, I can't think that much about it. You know what I mean? I want to know what I want to say. You know what I mean? I think I need to learn if it's like a part with lines and stuff. Now, when I was making shit with you, you had fucking shit I would never remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it makes sense to be like curious in that scenario. Like I'm not feeling right about this, or like this just I don't know if I'm playing this right, or that kind of thing. But this was like a very hostile. Like this doesn't make sense.
Well, your job is to play that character.
Right,
it's like why you're not supposed to bring yourself and your personal. In my opinion, to be like, hey, I just, I don't get that. And some people, we have to in this day and age, and I get it, I guess, where you have the right, I guess, to be uncomfortable about something, whatever, of course. But I feel like that's not part of the bargain you made with her. She already had read the script, and you know what I mean? And then I just, what I like about acting and improvising is in playing characters is kind of detaching from yourself. You know what I mean? And your own filters or whatever the fuck. And, you know what I mean? Playing characters, and it's liberating. So I try, they say, bring yourself in it because you're doing it, and think like maybe if you just can't instinctively relate to what's happening or the motivations, maybe try to find something that you can relate to. You know what I mean? I get that, but I don't see bringing like, I did an audition for a Klansman the other day, right? I was telling you that, right? And I never like that. I didn't know that was what it was for me because it's horrific, but it's just like let yourself go and just be this monster. You know what I mean? I don't know, and like.
I remember when we were Klansmen for that Cliff Cash sketch that ever came out.
And I remember we did a quick little thing where we were Trump and Pence, and you were Pence wheeling me into the fucking thing in a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, let's get some whores. It's so dumb.
I know I have like an old selfie on my phone of like you and me in the Klans outfit.
I know. And it's just like monsters like that, who I'm not that person, you know what I mean? But like we all have these monsters in us in a way, and I think there's a liberating way that you can just to get in the heads of these people, you know what I mean? Everybody, like if you watch fucking true crime shows or whatever, I love true crime like everybody else and detective shit, and we all think like, man, what a fucking idiot. I would have done this or that. Why did they look up how to dissolve a body on Google or whatever? You know what I mean? So there's that part of our mind, you know what I mean? That's that's just my own experience, I guess. I'm losing my way here.
I feel like, but yeah, it seems like just most people repress their shadow. They don't acknowledge that there's these monsters living inside us and their capacity.
And where's a better way to explore that, in a positive way? Exactly.
Art is the place to do it. Because otherwise, if you don't do it there, then you do it in real life.
And so that's what you know what I mean? And maybe some people are just stupid. And as the older I get, this is probably stupid and ignorant, whatever, I don't care. But so much of shit that I'm like, what the fuck? Like that scenario about the girl, people not wanting to do something, that they've agreed to, or that's like, you know what? I'm not a racist. I would never say that. So I can't play this racist character. Like, no shit. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to watch shit about boring ass motherfuckers like yourself. And I don't even know where I was going with this. It just, now I do. It's that fanaticism is so rampant now. I mean, it always has been, but everybody has megaphones. And so I just think that it's ignorance. There's so much ignorance, and you just have to say, like, you know what? Oh, fuck. That person, they're stupid. You know what? And we're just going to move on, and we're going to try to work with this fucking stupid person. You know what I mean? Like, with that woman, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like would it be the most emotionally intelligent thing to do to be like, this fucking person's an idiot? You know what I mean? Obviously. So I'm going to have to find a way to relate to her to get what I want. And performance.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I really was trying my best. Like, that was the acknowledgement, and I tried for 4 or 5 days straight to like bend over backwards, like, hey, clearly you're not comfortable or vibing with this experience, and I really want to do everything I can to create that comfortability for you, so that you can loosen up and behave like you're one of us, like one of the friends here. We want that. I really want that. And I was like really trying to extend an olive branch in my hand to her, like, let's fucking let's be cool and let's have fun. And she was just so cold and closed off, and I got the vibe, like, from all the phone calls and conversations prior to her actually showing up, that she was totally going to be like that. But it was just when she showed up and was in person, she was just a different person. She was cold, closed off LA girl, and it was fucking like, oh fuck, how do I fix this now? And if I had money and like had to repeat that experience, I would have just been like, probably not the first little feud or even the second one, but I think by the time we got to the third one, I probably would have recognized. And I even had a similar experience with someone recently where, like, I just realized I make this person uncomfortable. Being the version of me that I am, not accidentally and can improve, but being the version of me that I aim for and am doing on purpose. I make this person uncomfortable being that. And so I just feel like what it is we just don't mesh. And I think the most emotionally mature thing to do, and because money isn't an issue for me in this hypothetical scenario, is go to her and say, hey, I'm going to let you go. We're going to just scrap what we've shot so far.
It's not working out.
I'm going to pay my crew to reshoot this, what we have done, with someone else. Because
they do this. I mean, that's what people do all the time, right?
Yeah. And the second time around where I vet for someone to play this role, I'm going to now know a little bit more about what I should be looking for and the conversation I should have with them to let them know, like, hey, it's really important to me that this is the work environment. And if that frightens you or turns you off, say that, because otherwise you're going to be uncomfortable working.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. Earlier in our conversation today, we were talking, I think, a little bit about how, like, people take you, or like, say your stand up sometimes, and they maybe dismiss you, who you are, maybe as a filmmaker, or as and maybe dismiss is too harsh of a word, but just meaning like, like, oh, Cameron, he's, whatever they want to think about you, but like kind of caricaturize you by that stand-up persona. And so I can relate to that. I was thinking about like when I from doing improv, I'm an idiot, and that's part of like feel like, you know, as an improviser when I'm on stage, it's fucking the moment I start going on stage, I'm not Jon Ripley, you know what I mean? I'm Jon Ripley as my shtick, as my improviser. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've done that for a long time, and that's just how I like to perform. You know what I mean? And you know, sometimes people attribute that to me, I think, in real life. You know what I mean? And I can be dismissive of you as like a dumbass, and I get a kick out of it. You know, I just like, cool. You know, because I've had an experience talking about you with other people. I don't have a good enough memory to remember any details, but just being like, people being like, oh, Cameron's kind of, you know, nut with his anti-comedy and his weird movies. You know, oh, Cameron, you know, Cameron doing Cameron, and I just like, you know, that's a stupid person in my opinion, because I agree. Like, I know you on what I see you as is one of the conversations that we have, you know what I mean? As somebody who's pretty introspective and thoughtful, you know what I mean? You have, you know, a lot of people, a lot of people would say your comedy's fucked up. You know, I mean, that would be a word they would use.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
Yeah, and in some capacity, yeah, of course. But it's, you know, I don't know. I'm basically repeating what I'm trying to say is that, you know, people can't get past their first impression of you, I guess.
I agree with that. And in fact, I think that's been a thing that's come up a lot in these stand-up conversations. Because, like, on one hand, I think there are just the people that haven't had the chance to get any other information or experience with me to prove that sort of reductionist thinking wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you've had plenty of opportunity to have like real human, deep conversations and behind the scenes interactions with me where, you know, that's your reality. It's like, yeah, that's an aspect of Cameron, but he's mostly someone that's like a human to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, like, you know, there's plenty of people that can easily just, they only see me for the 4 minutes I go up and then see the, you know, the few seconds of me trying to avoid talking to anyone on stage while I'm there. And then I could totally understand how that can, and then, you know, I've told a story about how, like, when I first started, I was 17, and like Mike Van Vliet came to me months later and was like, this whole time I thought you were a piece of shit, but now I've gotten to know you, and like, I really like you, and I just wanted to tell you that. And I feel like I've had lots of moments like that where people come around, but where I was getting to is there's also people that I feel like do know me well enough to know, no, it's not anti-comedy. It's not shock value. I'm not intentionally tanking the energy of the room. I really do love stand-up. I respect this art, and I'm very passionate about it. But they think, like Lou Morganti is a good example. He does not trust that I am doing my best on a showcase. And like, if I do a joke that tanks the energy of the room, his assumption is that's Cameron doing that on purpose. He knows what he's doing because he has no skin in the game. And I'm like, and I've had this conversation with him directly a number of times where I'm like, like the most recent sort of confrontation about that, it clicked with me. I'm like, damn, like, I feel like you should know by now. Like, I feel like we know each other well enough for you to understand that's not the case. But even me thinking that and feeling that way, I'm seeing and understanding that isn't. Like, I'm understanding you don't trust me like that. This is how you see me, despite how well I think we know each other. And that's disappointing. And I don't, it doesn't seem like there is any way for me to convince you with my words or prove to you with my actions that isn't the case.
Maybe you can't, you know what I mean? You're not right for his, you know, cause like sitting here and like, and from my own perspective, you know, like, obviously, but like I can see a little bit where Lou's coming from, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, I understand these things. Like, I understand why people have this perspective.
Yes.
But it's impossible for me to get some of these people to understand, like when I had this kind of argument with like Timmy and Amy about, you know, putting me at the club, and whether that is just an open mic or having weekend shows and stuff. There's constantly these conversations. Like, you have to dial it back. It's like, okay, I can do that. I understand to play ball. And then there's these times where it's like, where it's open mic, where it's like, no, this has always been the place for you to experiment and try what you want. You know, you're obviously trying things for the first time in stand-up. You don't know until what works until you do it. Yeah. And so then it was getting in this murky area where they're saying, like, we don't want to tell you what you can and can't do, but we are trying to run a business. And in my head, I'm like, okay, but I'm not sitting by myself before these shows going like, all right, how can I damage the business and walk people? I'm not thinking that. I'm like, the same way. It's like, what are the taboo subjects? All right. Okay. How can I make a great joke out of that? Like, what's the first iteration? Where do I start? Where do I find out where they pull back, where I can get a laugh in this? And then I go experiment and I try this. And that's what I have to do. I have to be willing to fail, and I have to be able to fail, especially in the open mic context, a number of times. Because that's what even like the big comedians do. Like Louis C.K., when he fucking has a new hour, he has to go bomb a bunch of times and figure out where the joke is. And I think that they're in a lot of these folks like Timmy, Amy, Lou, were in this scenario where it's like, of course they're not going to say, hey, don't do this subject, or this subject ever here where you're under our roof. But at the same time, they're like implying, you know what you're doing, and you're doing it. So just stop doing
what your
that.
intention is.
Right. And I don't know how to convince them. Like, no. I really am like. It seems to me that the thing to do is to stop taking risks while I'm here.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't think anyone
thinking
knows.
About as you're in knowing you, and like
it's a sticky situation.
Because seriously, dude, it's so like you're talking about this, and I'm having these thoughts, and I'm thinking about like, okay, like you're somebody, right, who is my friend, but I don't hang out with you very often, right?
Right.
We get together and like have a conversation or whatever, and we haven't always have interest, like we're just right now. But then I don't see you or really ever talk to you. But then I do hear about you or hear about, did you hear about Cameron did this? Did you hear, and Lou's pissed at him about that or whatever it was. I'll catch some wind of this stuff every once in a while or hear, different people. We'll be talking and just from like hearing these things and the anti-comedy things and like, so it gets into be like the psychology of Cameron Smith. And I can still like, even finding myself falling into the trap of like, sometimes I worry about Cameron because like this darkness, you know what I mean? And I like myself. And then when I see you and we interact and talk and it's you know what I mean? Then I'm like,
kind of dissolves.
Of course, totally. And so it's very, it's so weird. It's so, it's
imagine being on this end of it.
Sometimes like literally I hear these things and like just see this not never from what our like face to face how like it all should be, but in this day and age where we have social media, and social media, but but just
social media
and just these things, and people all start, we'll tell something about Cameron and then we'll get on her, like people will be like telling Cameron Smith stories, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, the one, like the time that you came to the studio and got the pig costume or whatever it was to go that whole thing, and I was telling like Bridget about it or something and Steve, and I was just like, man, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, man, I don't know what this guy's doing,
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's funny how you can take snippets from people, right? I'm sure that we all do it for other people, and you know what I mean? You it's the distance we have between ourselves or whatever. So you allow the craziness in your mind to, I think about this all the time about perception versus reality, and I mean, perception is reality, but how your perception in your head, if you get too caught in your head, you can find yourself, at least in my mind, where I'm like obsessing over things and thinking about things where that I'm like, they become more singularly focused and they affect everything, and I realize that now my reality is like I'm being delusional, you know what I mean, in a negative way,
right?
and being cognizant of those, of like, oh, I'm in my head big time. You know what I mean? Like, I know when I'm in my head, but also, I don't know. It's like just being able to detach yourself from your thoughts and your emotions, I guess, a little bit.
Right.
And just do like a check-in of like, how am I really feeling right now? And is what is bothering me, or maybe a feeling of stress, anxiety, anger, whatever it is, the negative feeling. And maybe you should even do it when you're happy. But, you know, thinking about like, oh, wait, this is just something that's coming from inside my mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's become important to me, because I feel like I'm starting to feel, through the course of the last 25 years or whatever, my adulthood, you know, becoming more, you know, they say you become more comfortable with yourself. At least some people do. I feel like I have, you know, accepting who I am.
Yeah.
And then trying to feel like, you know, I have the issues I deal with this, with whatever, you know what I mean? That in my human experience that make me, you know, whatever cause me stress, and just whatever it is, and thinking about like, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling right now? And if it's a negative thing, because a lot of times I get, you know, I deal with anxiety and depression, and it's, you know, I've learned how to deal with it and have less anxiety and depression in my life. And, you know, like, I'm being easier on yourself. You know what I mean? Don't judge yourself harshly, you know?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we could go down a real deep rabbit hole there. I mean, like, I typically do
like
talk
a
about
word salad. I felt like right
mental
there.
health and stuff. Well, like, I think the only other thing I wanted to say on the train that we were on, and then I'm happy to go down this other path, but and then I think this overlaps too with that point about like judging yourself or whatever. I think that's one of the things about me that I feel like, you know, because we can talk about, oh, you know, my comedy visits a lot of taboo subjects and people just don't want to associate that. But I think the deeper thing there that's kind of the common denominator with all of it, because like I you know, people have often described me based on the art, like Cameron's someone who doesn't give a fuck, but I don't feel that way. I feel like I do give too much of a fuck in a lot of cases and areas of life.
Yeah.
But I do think there's one area I seem to obviously not give a fuck about. And I think it's my image. Like you're talking about, the saying is when you're hearing the stories and there's like this abstract amalgamation of, well, sometimes I worry about Cameron. It's that, like, that's man, the image. That's the image.
Anyone could be a mass shooter. I would say Cameron.
Right.
That's terrible. And sorry, but
oh no, I you know, that same thought is like I play with that in stand-up where I'm talking about like, oh, I look like a fucking serial rapist, mass shooter,
yes, of course.
But like, and that's it. It's like I let my image be whatever it's gonna be as a result of me behaving the way that I choose to behave. And so like whatever gets made, and then I hear feedback, I'm like, okay, and I'm gonna play with that. I'm gonna fuck with, oh, they think I'm a fucking mass shooter, how would I make jokes about that? You know?
Yes. And I get it.
You know, and like, oh, you know, with the pig costume thing, it's like, this girl already thinks I'm fucking crazy, or this would just be silly to show up as this, and and I think that there, especially in the modern day of social media, people really work themselves up into fits of anxiety and depression because they put so much weight on their image, like trying to construct this thing that you really kind of don't get a whole lot of control in, and
controlling the narrative.
Yeah, trying to control your image and control your narrative. It is a anxiety inducing thing because there's so many elements that are outside of your control, and if you try to grip that, you're setting yourself up for constant disappointment and frustration and fear and negative adverse reaction to it. And I think that's the little like nuanced level that I've been picking up in my more like recent lesson learning years, is like, I think it's the people that really care about their image are the ones that I'm unable to collaborate with and unable to have good relationships with because I am such a threat to their world. Like, I'm really bad for their world. I am damaging to someone's image potentially to be associated with me or to work on one of my things with me that may be something that later they're going to ask me to delete or take off the internet or something like that.
I can only dream that I have to. I would never worry. I don't give a fuck about, you know what I mean? Like I've made a lot of shit where people, you know, if people ever actually watched it in any great number, they'd be like, there'd be plenty to be like, this is fucked up, or whatever, you know what I mean? And I don't care, you know. I would love to have that problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, and for the most part, people we're dealing with, you know, as far as success as artists, they're not having it. You know what I mean? I mean, I do believe in, you know, quantifying success on your own terms or whatever, or something, you know what I mean? But like people who are like part of a local open mic comedy scene that are worried about it being associated with another fucking guy who's an open micer. I like, no one gives a fuck, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, people really, it just baffles me how much people think people care, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely think. Oh, and that was we were talking about earlier. We went off on a total tangent, but why I said I feel like a black sheep to this community of black sheep, talking about comedians.
Yeah,
is because is that same, like, a lot of times early on people were scared, he's not a comic, he's more of a performance artist.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with that, or like understand that perspective or that statement.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, because it almost feels like, even when I'm doing stand-up that appears to be more conventional, I'm kind of doing it in this like meta way where I'm like kind of like making fun of stand-up.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I can mimic it. I can mimic what stand-up looks like, but
that's what you were doing that time we were talking about earlier, where you had them and they loved you, and then you were just like destroyed them. That feeling. I mean,
it's fun to watch.
It is. Well, it's like Picasso, right? Didn't he say destruction is an art of creation?
Yeah.
Is an act of creation. And it's true, you know, even though it's, you know, not desirable typically, it's can be something to behold, you know what I mean? To be like the man on the wire when you're doing stand-up and you're bombing, or to be out there at the time when I, you know, said something racist and not with hate in my heart at all, but with like the thought of like, oh, this is going to be the funniest fucking thing. And it wasn't. I don't know. That's the thrill of it. That's one of the things that's so fun about it, is that, like, you know what, that sucked and everybody hated me. You know what I mean? And I was, you know what I mean?
That's a really funny story to tell now.
And 100 people thought I was just fucking racist. And it made me question my own, you know, racist. You know, it was a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that I experienced that. You know what I mean? And I know that most people don't get to experience that side of being the one that a whole room full of people are like, oh, or you do something where everybody cringes. You make 100 people cringe at you. You know what I mean? Like, there's something special about that.
Yeah.
Somebody's calling me. I don't know if it's my wife. It's my brother. I don't care. Sorry. I do care, but I'm not talking to him right now.
Well, hey, we've been going like 2 hours, so I was gonna say it might be.
It's a good time to wrap it up. I gotta get my kids from school and shit.
We can always do another one.
Dude, I can just ramble on about everything. I didn't even really talk about Baboon Lasan, which is like, I've made like so many of these fucking videos now, you know, and
I've told you what my personal favorite is.
No, which one?
Cat to dog. That's such a fucking hilarious idea.
The complete food system.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
The dogs eat the cat shit.
Yeah, the dog. How does the system go? Because I remember the line. It's something like something for your cat that makes a meal for your dog.
yeah. Food for your cat that makes a meal for your dog. Dude. Good stuff.
Check out Baboomless on YouTube and TikTok now, right? TikToking?
Yeah. It's TikToking. I think it's just Jon Ripley. I put most of our stuff up there. I don't know if we have. I think Dave is a Baboomless on one that has nothing on TikTok, really.
Well,
cool, man.
It's been a pleasure. Good catching up with you and chatting with you.
You too. I look forward to, acting in more of your films. That's one of my dreams.
It'll come soon enough.
Okay.
I'm fucking dying to do it, and yeah, I've got
just
some shit.
Just funny and silly, man. And we didn't talk about who I missed. Like sketches I put online, and I'll put these like YouTube shorts up, and he's just so fucking funny. Is Colton?
Yeah,
and I miss doing shit with him too. Like us three, I felt like we had this nice. We're all pretty funny. We have a sense of humor that plays well off each other. So like doing that scene when we were eating the shit.
The man-mades.
Oh God,
that would be
so we could talk an hour about man-made. So
yeah,
but
I just remember talking about, because I think when we did that documentary interview, we talked about it. But the fact that you guys did that scene once, and then the sound got lost in like a scene.
Yeah, I forgot and
then we had to do it again. And the second time, you actually threw up.
I know.
You just ate a bunch of Burger King.
How dirty the bathroom was when we were doing that in. Holy fuck! I'm lucky I didn't get fucking tetanus or some shit, dude. Typhoid. That was disgusting. There were like pubes on the floor in the bathroom and shit. Nasty, right? In Colton's upstairs bathroom, right?
Yeah.
The one where his roommate fucking broke the toilet and it flooded the whole fucking house. Remember? And then they had the fucking, the disaster fixers, whatever that was called. And it was like,
God.
God.
Look up man-mades on YouTube.
Cameron, thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for coming, John.
You got it.
Oh wow! I usually always fist bump or do a handshake like that across.